question for you for Fatherlessness Stats. I saw this the other day, and I speak on this a lot, and I think a part of what's going on today with the momentum of Tate and with the momentum of, what you've been speaking about with Prager University on the role family nucleus, you're seeing this being talked about everywhere. I see the stat, and I want to know how we got here and how we need to fix this. Okay, so here are the stats. The U.S. has the highest rate of children living in single-parent households of any nation. About 80% of single-parent homes are led by single mothers. At a rate of 23% of children living with one parent and no other adult, the United States is 3 times the world average of 7%. So 23% is U.S., 7% is world average. China's 3%, India's 4%, okay? Where a mom isn't there or a dad isn't there. Even for children with a father present in the home, the average school age boy only spends about 30 minutes per week in one-on-one conversations with his father. For comparison, the same boy on average will spend about 44 hours per week watching television, playing video games, and surfing the internet. 90% of all homelessness and runaway children, 63% of teen suicides, 85% of children and teens with behavioral disorders come from fatherless homes. Fatherlessness, likewise, has a direct link to teen pregnancy and sexual activity. Roughly 70% of teenage pregnancies come from women raised in fatherless homes, and these same women have significantly higher abortion rates than women raised by both a father and a mother. On the whole, fatherless kids are 20 times more likely to be incarcerated and 11 times more likely to exhibit violent behavior than children of two-parent households. If a man and a wife, this one's one of the most interesting stats, if a man and a wife raise a child, they're less likely to end up in jail, but they have the same chance as children raised by just their fathers. Let me read that one more time. If a man and a wife raise a child, they're less likely to end up in jail, but they have the same chances as children raised by just only their fathers. Girls with no fathers have low self-esteem. And obviously this ties to crime, mental issues, economy, suicide rates, all these other things. One, how did we get here? Okay, was this intentional to want to break the family nucleus where this is not a leader's bulletin we want to be winning in? Like, this is not something to be bragging about. We're a very competitive nation. We want to be the best at innovation. We want to be the best in this and that. This is not a place to brag about. How do we get here? And Dennis, what's the solution?
One of the ways we got here was the feminist movement. One of its mottos was, a woman without a man is like a fish without a bicycle. Very famous phrase from early feminism in the 60s, 70s. Men are essentially regarded as useless. We need their sperm, and other than that, we really don't need men. Kids don't need men. I cite in something I wrote a New York Times survey of experts, quote unquote, which usually means foolish people who know one thing. And the whole heading was, are fathers necessary? It was actually a big column in the New York Times, and repeatedly, that fathers are not necessary. Again, the secular intellectual is generally a stupid person. Fathers are essential. Everything you read proves it, and yet we live in a world that denies the obvious. That's a good phrase for the modern age, the denial of the obvious. Girls without fathers in their lives are far more promiscuous, and you may say, so what? And the answer to the so what is, well, there is a what. The what is they get more depressed. They get angrier. They're less happy. And I've written a book on happiness, because I consider happiness to be an extremely important part of life. The happy make the world better. The unhappy make it worse. Happiness is a moral issue, not just an emotional issue. How did we get here? We got here once again thanks to secularism. Religious homes are far more likely to have a father in them. People are not willing to acknowledge that the roots of Western civilization, which are called Judeo-Christian, when you abolish the roots of a civilization, the trees fall down. I mean, I don't know why that shouldn't be obvious. What are we going to supplant it with? And we have supplanted it with again, foolish ideas. Men are not necessary. Women don't need them, and children don't need them. And so the men got the message. And now what do we have? 7 million able-bodied men, young able-bodied men who have taken themselves out of the workplace. This is a tragedy for society. It is a tragedy for men, and it's a tragedy for women looking for a good man to marry. It's also part of the another secular idiocy of the left, and that is that you don't need to marry. This is an old-fashioned idea that people should marry. 3 generations of women, starting with the baby boomers, of which I am a member, were taught, you want to get married, but young woman, the thing that will bring you the greatest joy and happiness and fulfillment is career, which is one of the greatest lies in the world of lies. It's really as much a lie as men give birth. But when you hear something enough, you start to believe it. Oh, I don't really need marriage. I'll be great with a career. I've written over 1,000 columns. They're all on the internet. 20 years, about 50 a year. And only one of them I didn't write. All I did was transcribe a call to my radio show. And I have a male-female hour every week, and I discuss this issue. Tell me, if you pursued career and not marriage, has it worked out for you? 50-year-old woman who is a CEO, makes a good living. She has 3 degrees from universities, and essentially, almost in tears, spoke eloquently about how being a CEO doesn't quite compensate for going home to an empty home when she sees friends with a husband and children. And everybody knows marriages have issues and children are issues. But the purpose of life is not to avoid issues. It's to embrace the fullness of life. And I'll just say point blank, because nobody tells people things they don't want to hear. Everybody wants to be loved. I have no such aim. And you don't grow up if you don't get married. This is a message to men. This is a message to women. You can be very successful. You don't grow up, okay? You can be a wonderful human being, good volunteer services. You can adopt stray puppies and do all sorts of things. Every married person, including people who married and had a lousy marriage and divorced, will acknowledge they grew up when they got married. And then you grow up exponentially when you have children and you're married. But people don't want to grow up. The left is Peter Pan. The left is the embracing of immaturity. And you have most professors are immature people. And they help develop immature young people. It is a catastrophe. They don't hear from people like me. Obviously they do. I mean, let me make this. They don't hear from people like me, meaning that we're not their professors. We try to go around it with PragerU, with lectures, with books, and not just me, thank God. There are other wonderful people giving good messages, but we're censored. I mean, Ben Shapiro went to Berkeley and they had $600,000 in security. There's no security for the most radical leftist speaker. They don't need one bodyguard. Why do conservatives need $600,000 of security? Do people not put 2 and 2 together? The damage the left does, all it does is destroy. The American Medical Association has announced that the sex of a child should not be on a birth certificate because we don't know it until they choose it. This is the American Medical Association.
Can you pull this up?
Yes, pull it up.
The American Medical...
Yes, the American... See, this is the thing. People don't know the damage the left does to everything it touches: art, music, education, children, male-female relations, and medicine. It has corrupted the medical field. The American American Academy of Pediatrics, or pediatricians, whatever the full name is, they've come out for affirmative care to give minors hormone blockers. I mean, That is evil. Yes, that's a new evil. You asked for a new evil. What we're doing to kids now in the name of transgender is pure evil.
You know, Dennis, you talked about happiness, and the book you're referencing, for people who are listening, he was referencing his book, Happiness is a Serious Problem, which, if you haven't read it, read it. He's not on a book tour. This was written many, many years ago, but the truths that are in there about finding purpose and the things that you do, and that the pursuit of happiness is not the pursuit of joy. You know, joy is deeper in your heart. Happiness is, hey, my team won today. It was a pretty good day. And if all you're searching for is those moments of happiness, that's not joy. It's the deeper joy about service and what you do and purpose in life. And thank you for writing that book.
Thank you.
Chuck Colson, the late Chuck Colson, wrote How Now Shall We Live? A wonderful book you're probably familiar with. And he was talking about the steps out. What do you think are some of the steps out? Because you very eloquently...
Steps out of...
What you're talking about here. What initial steps out, you know, as a society, as people, or as a country... You talk about the left very eloquently. What are our initial steps out?
I'll give you a terrific first step. To know that you have to fight your nature. You can't develop as a human being. You can't even be a happy human being if you don't fight your nature. That's the number one issue in life.
Unpack that.
Okay. First of all, human nature is not basically good. Only the naive who have lived a spoiled life believe the nonsense that human nature is basically good. I don't say human nature is basically evil. I'm saying it's not basically good. Number two, your own nature. There are two natures we have. We all have human nature, and we all have our own natures. You have to battle both. My father told me all of my childhood, I'm lazy. I didn't like hearing it. Thank God he said it to me. My father criticized me way more than he praised me, and I'm a better man for that fact. Much better. There's no comparison. And because that's not the role of a parent in the world of the stupid in which we live is to give kids self-esteem. So you give them trophies for playing, not trophies for winning, trophies for playing. That's damaging to children. You don't think you have to achieve in order to get a reward from society. Well, you do, kid. You have to achieve. If you didn't win, you don't get a trophy. End of issue. So the first thing, people call my show and they go, Dennis, you're a father figure to me. I'm having a kid. Give me a piece of advice. And I always have the same. Teach them self-control, not self-esteem. You get self-esteem from self-control. Self-control is the root to self-esteem. It is the root to happiness. It is the root to a productive. It is the only route to a good life.
Your words carry a lot of weight. So I want to unpack what you just said right there. Where your father gave you, by the way, the same thing. You're lazy. That's the one thing my dad kept telling me when I was a kid. So it's very common to what my dad told me as a kid. I read this book called The Genius in All of Us 14 years ago, and maybe 10 years ago. In the statistic it showed in there, it said they're in the three different classes of parents: lower class, middle class, upper class. Okay, so lower, middle, upper. Lower class, from the day the kid is born to 18, they get negative affirmations, means no's and rejections 600,000 times more than positive. Lower class. Middle was 100,000 more negative affirmation, okay, than positive. And the upper class parents to their kids was 100,000 more than criticism. Make sense? That's what this book is talking about.
So the
genius in all
more
of
you
us.
achieved, the more you were criticized. Is that what you're
No,
saying?
the parents of the upper class parents, the way they spoke to their kids is, what you did was wrong, but I believe you can improve this, ... Versus the lower class parents would say, you're an idiot, you're a moron, why'd you do that? So
my father was right. I was lazy. Calling a kid an idiot or a moron is not helpful.
That's what I mean.
You
Yes.
can't overcome being an idiot or a moron. I mean, that's the parent is an idiot and a moron.
I agree.
Who says that?
Yes.
So I'm not advocating that.
I know you're not.
I'm advocating the opposite, though, of what we're doing. Oh, you're terrific. Oh, my God, you made a bowel movement. I got to get you a prize. That is the most beautiful poop I have ever seen in my life, or it's America's favorite word. It was an awesome poop. Oh, my God. I mean, so it never ends. The constant praise. It doesn't mean anything, or you become a narcissist. You expect that praise. There's got to be a balance. Parents should be real. You did a good job, good. I commend your good job. You did a bad job, you did a bad job. My wife, who I think she was a single mom, and she sort of is an outlier because she raised two wonderful boys, and I'm saying it because she's my wife. It's just a fact. You met one.
She's a lawyer.
Well, she is a lawyer, but she doesn't practice law.
Sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
Anyway, she told her kids as follows, and I hope I get it right. And she's listening right now, so I'm sure she's a little worried. But basically, if you do something wrong, if you're guilty and the police pick you up, don't waste your one phone call on me. That was a very direct statement to kids. You use drugs that night. You don't sleep in my house. I mean, that's good stuff. I asked on my radio show. My radio show has been my human laboratory because I not only talk to millions, I talk with tens of thousands. That's an amazing thing to say. And I've learned an immense amount. So I often just ask questions. If you didn't use drugs in high school, why didn't you? And I had no idea what the answers would be. Virtually
What a
every
great
single
question.
Isn't it?
What
Yeah.
a great question.
So right. So here was the answer. Overwhelmingly, they all said the same thing, men and women. My mother would kill me.
Specifically the mother.
Yes, isn't that interesting?
Mother
Yeah.
would kill.
Yes, my mother would kill me.
Not the father.
Well, the assumption in a two-parent home is if you get by your mother, your father will torture you. I don't know what's worse than killing you, but
She's the first line of defense.
He will
If you get by her.
dismember you. Once I kill you, he'll dismember you. I don't know, but yes, she's the first line of defense. Yeah.
Gotcha. Well, yesterday I was playing football with my nephew. Right, I don't have kids. I'm working on it, but I take an active role in my nephew's life, and he's the only child, and I've seen that he's sort of been coddled a little bit, and it's kind of my job as the uncle to be like, toughen up, kid. And every time you catch the ball, we have to catch it, throw it back and forth 10 times. If and then we move on to the next lesson. And every time he dropped it was an excuse. Oh, it's slippery outside. Oh, the sun's in my eye. Oh, it's muddy. Whatever it is. I'm like, listen, if the ball hits your hand, you got to catch it, kid. That's the bottom line here, right? I played football. That's my thing. If it hits your hand, you got to catch it. My question to you is this. I said, once we're done with this, you'll get a reward for actually doing well. If you don't do good today, you get nothing. So he's negotiating, well, can I get this? Can I get that? You talked about the trophy culture and everybody gets something. If for the young parents out there who are raising kids, give me some case examples. Like if they screw up, how should you address it? And if they do well, how should you address it?
So it depends what the screw up means. If the screw up is a moral screw up, which is the only ones I am really concerned with, then they need to be punished. Here's another message. In addition to you have to control. You have to fight your nature. Most important message of all. But I had another message to my kids, which is almost unheard of for a Jewish upper middle class parent. It's almost unheard of. But I said to my kids repeatedly, I don't care about your grades, which is almost unheard of. I know. Among my peers, they found it almost unbelievable that I did this. All I care about is your character. Okay? So I don't care about your grades. All I care about is your character. And I think I have two good kids, and one went through a very difficult time. one of my kids is biological. One of my kids is adopted from the day of birth. He was born to a meth addict mother. I did not know that at the time, and that played havoc in his early life, as it turns out. He's terrific today. He's married. He wants to make a family. I thank God for him. My older son was never a difficult issue, but that was my message to them. Character is all that matters to me.
So if you like this clip and you want to watch another one, click right here. And if you want to watch the entire podcast, click right here.